Alright, today being a short day, we're going to put some of our skills to use and do an application project. So you're going to do a transformation project and you're going to demonstrate your skills for reflection, rotation, translation, and the mapping notation. So you'll be given a sheet of graph paper, you'll use pencils, markers, colored pencils, and a ruler. So you can see what you're going to do is you're going to divide up your graph paper into 4 quadrants. You're going to label the X and Y axis and label the quadrant in the corners so that I know the orientation of your paper. In quadrant 2, you can draw any image you want, but the requirement is you have to have at least 5 points, no curves, and it must not be a regular or perfectly symmetrical shape. Otherwise, it's not very interesting. I'm going to have some examples of previous projects around the room. They're slightly different, but you get an idea for the shapes. You're going to choose 5 of the points in your object, so your shape must have at least 5 points. And you're going to title that original object in quadrant 2 XY. You're going to reflect that image from quadrant 2 across to quadrant 1 across the Y axis. You're going to label those same 5 points that correspond, and you're going to write the coordinates. You're going to do a mapping notation on the top of this quadrant that explains how did you get there. Then we're going to take that image, which is in quadrant 1, and you're going to rotate clockwise into quadrant 4. You're going to label the corresponding points again with their coordinates, and then you're going to give me a mapping notation. How did I get from quadrant 1 to quadrant 4? And finally, you're going to take your image in quadrant 4 and you're going to do a translation into quadrant 3. And you must do a horizontal and vertical shift, not just horizontal or vertical alone. Again, you're going to label those corresponding points and write their coordinates. And you're going to do a mapping notation explaining how you got from quadrant 4 to quadrant 3. Make sure you put your name on this project, and it's going to be due on Friday. And you can see my grading rubric here. It's 1 point for each label and your coordinates. So that's 25 points right there for just your labeling. It's also going to be 1 point for the correct mapping notation, and an additional 3 points for neatness and 3 points for creativity. You had a really cool shape, you had some color, things like that. So it's 35 points, and this is going to be due on Friday. So let's look at an example. So this is just your bare minimum, right? So I started with just a 5-sided irregular shape that's not symmetrical and not regular. I labeled each vertex A, B, C, D, and E, and I also gave the coordinates for each point. Then I reflected that shape from quadrant 2 across the Y axis, labeled all of the points again with their coordinates, and since this is the transformation, the pre-image is A, B, C, D, E, and the transformation would be A prime, B prime, C prime, D prime, E prime. That way I know the trail to follow. And you can see up here in the top corner, we have the mapping notation from my original XY. We only changed the X value. The Y value stayed the same when I did my reflection in this case. You'll have to see if that works for yours as well. Now I'm going to take that image in the first quadrant, and I'm going to rotate it. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees clockwise into the 4th quadrant. Okay, I'm going to label these A double prime, B double prime, and C double prime, so I can see I started with the pre-image, I reflected to here, and I rotated to here. We're going to label all the points, and we're going to talk about how did I get from B prime to B double prime and do a little mapping notation down here. In this case, I can see that I went from 2, 4 to 4, negative 2, so I swapped places, and the X value, the X value became negative. And then finally, we're going to take that image and we are going to do a translation, remember a horizontal and vertical shift. In this case, I did a negative horizontal shift of 11 and a negative vertical shift of 1, bringing me to this position right here. I've labeled my points A triple prime, B triple prime, etc. with my new coordinates, and I put a mapping notation there at the bottom. Now, of course, this would be the bare minimum. I wouldn't get points for creativity, but I would get points for neatness if it looked like this. So don't take too much time knocking yourself out to do a fantastic shape. Remember, you only have till Friday to get all of this completed when you will turn it in. Good luck!